Stacking. That's what we do, right? Probably if you watch this, you're probably into stacking. Or maybe you're interested in stacking. But we didn't all start as stackers, probably. I want to tell a little story today about how I kind of started out. I don't know, it's just it's a little different video. Maybe you don't like it or whatever, but I just kind of share my story, how I started stacking. I reckon, like most people, everybody kind of knows about gold. It's a precious metal. I figure most people maybe got gold in their life. Maybe somebody they like. They like gold, or maybe their girlfriend or their wife, something. You probably know about a little bit about gold. You know it costs a lot, and you know it's a precious metal. That's about what I knew about gold. I've been, years back, you'd hear a conversation and somebody'd say, "Oh, gold is getting expensive." Of course, like somebody mentioned, gold's always been expensive. But you'd hear every now and again, even when I was a kid, I remember said, "Oh, gold's expensive. Silver's a little cheaper." But I think I just stick with, so people would say, "Well, I get the 10 karat gold ring, save a little money." And I didn't even understand back then the carats. But I always knew I'd like me some gold. But when you're a young feller, you start out, you can't afford any gold. But gold was the goal, right? Kind of. And I liked other things. I like computers. I bought computers and this and that. Years later, I like some black metal. Y'all probably guess what that is. And I bought some of that. And of course, you got to have some of that metal with some 4 wheels on it. I bought some of those. But anyway, going down the years, probably, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years ago, I was working with a few people, and they was on a conversation about this and that, investing. And one feller, he's into Bitcoin and crypto, and his lady, she's into gold. They got on the topic of gold. Well, turned out the feller, he liked both. They talking about the gold. I don't know, they saying they wanted gold bars and this. At that time, I didn't know much about it. So I listened to their conversation. I thought, they talking about putting gold bars in their safe and getting a gold, I don't know. At that time, I wasn't really knowing about gold coin versus gold bar versus maybe a gold round or something. That ain't that popular. But anyway, I heard their conversation. They talking about gold. This was probably in 2018 or so. And that just kind of planted a seed in me. And I thought, some folk do buy that gold. They get their gold and they saving up in gold. Kind of made me think. So here about the pandemic time, y'all know, everything kind of strange. And I tell you a little bit personal story. I wound up kind of stuck on a high rise in Asia. Not like stuck there for good, but I had to be there for a bit. So I was over in Asia, up on a building, walking around on top, because, in lockdown, they didn't want you. If you walked out in public, you had to wear all this masks and that and the other. And rather than walking out, you had a certain time you could get out and this and that. So I was up there walking around. I downloaded me a book that I think it was Stack Gold, Get Silver or something like that. I probably got the title all mixed up, but anyways, it's about stacking, about getting gold. Get gold, stack silver, I think that might have been the name. And that's kind of my first part of education about 999, 4 nines, all this different nines. What is it, all this nines to do with? And it was good because that was before I really bought anything. That's kind of my research phase. I started out with that. Wife was there with me. We was there. And I was the one, I just put my earbuds in, walk around, listen to that book. A few other books. So that kind of the seed was there, and that kind of a little bit, I don't know, watering it. Got back to work and back in the U.S. and, you know, for a little bit, I had to stack a little paper, you know, trying to save up, had a few things, you know, before you stack the gold, you gotta stack some paper up, because I ain't just got enough money laying around generally, especially coming out of the pandemic. You know, we've been off a little bit, and I was blessed. The company I was with, they treat me right. They kind of kept me on, even though I was stuck over there. And wound up, I saved up we need a new car, and then got a little blessing, got a little bonus at work. And so we bought a cheap car, something that bonus wound up paying our car. And so I took the money we'd been saving for the car, and that's about the time that we got, you know, we're there in the U.S. I think that's 22. Maybe Christmas of 21, something like that. 2021 or 2022. And at Maple, that's the first one I bought. At that time, like I said, I'd read that book. They said, gold's good, but you need to get silver. That's where it's got the more potential. So I got me an ounce of gold, and I put the rest in silver. Of course, that silver ain't here right now, but it's some buffalo rounds, some constitutional. So we got ounce of gold and a little bit of silver. Probably, I don't know, couple hundred or 100, probably 100 ounces of silver at the time or something like that. So we had a little bit of both, and that's how we started out. Of course, at that time, it just kind of me into gold coins. The wife, she's into gold jewelry. In fact, she probably a stacker before I was, because she buying jewelry. She said, oh, that'd be a good investment. And it turned out not too bad. Turned out better than cash, but you know how it is with jewelry. Even if you buy it secondhand, you wind up paying a little premium. Then when you go to sell it, they ain't gonna give you they gonna give you under spot. So on the jewelry, she did all right, but later on we got in another, rocked along another few years and saved up some more cash, and we was ready to buy a little more gold. And in that case, I took her coin shop with me, and she got to looking at the pretty gold. I think at that time it wasn't this here buffalo, but I got me a buffalo and I got me an eagle. That's about what I could afford out of our savings. We had saved up, or I'd saved up. I could get me a couple more ounces. And gold is right around 2,000, a little under 2,000, like 1,900. even with the premium, I think I was under 2,000 an ounce. I got me another couple ounces, and it's good because I took her after I did that first purchase. I took her by the coin shop. Actually, there's more to the story, but we won't go all into it. I had to go back in and correct a few little things. He did a swap out for me, but what I wound up with Buffalo, let's see, we go with a regular Buffalo. Wound up with me a Buffalo and an Eagle. And she got to looking at coins and all that, and she had her some savings, so I think she's asking me what she ought to get, and I'd been watching some YouTube, and I said, I like that Britannia. You ought to see. I think we wound up with this here Britannia. I really wanted a new one, but that's all he had. One of these older Britannias. Ain't got all the security of the new one, but it's still pretty. And she liked that. She had more money than I did, and I think she wound up with this. Well, she got something. I think she might have got a maple leaf. And then I wound up saved a little bit more and got one of these Philharmonics. She wound up trading me her maple for that Philharmonic. And so that's kind of our how we got into stacking, and that's how I got her into stacking. It really wasn't hard to convince her. I know, in fact, some fellers, the wife got into stacking first. If y'all watch Mr. and Mrs. West Texas Stacker, he said his wife started him stacking. I think that's pretty neat. It's good to have that, hobby together, and it ain't just a hobby. It's also getting you on the same page of your money. So we did that, and then more recently we've been picking up a few things. We had some more savings for some things, and we started buying some more. And she got more into it. She had a little bit more savings. She started buying some more. Of course, we got a little more silver. Gold's been good for us, looking at the price where we bought it and then where it went up to. Of course, now we bought a few ounces recently, and it kind of stings thinking, well, wish we'd have bought back then, but you got to save your money. And I ain't always been the best at that dollar cost averaging into it. Like people always said, I don't know, for me, for us, it's kind of different. I work a lot, and sometimes just getting I guess it's the habit, and getting in to even make a buy is kind of got to find time. And that's, sometimes we get a dip, and I'd like to make a buy, but by the time I get into the coin shop, the dip is done dipped, and we got what they said, the handle or whatever. But anyway, that's kind of where we at. In this last little bit, we've been really, I guess I've been more getting into some collecting. Been buying some of this here pre-33. I've been watching old Dub C, and if you ain't seen Dub C, you ought to watch him. He really smart feller. Most of his stuff is, he said he's a stacker, but he's a collector. He stacks what he likes. So he mostly got a lot of pre-33 and a few other old gold coins, and all of his stuff real nice. He got some gold sovereigns, and I think he's got just about everything, but mostly he ain't got, he said he don't mostly do the modern, mostly his, he likes it also to have some sort of collector. He got a bunch of vintage bars. And anyway, if you ain't seen him, you gotta watch Old Dub C. I call him Old Dub C. I ain't being disrespectful. I don't know. And that's how I said Old Dub C. But it Dub C, I think, coin, precious metals and coin. I try to put the link to him. There's a few I like to watch, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is I just like to watch, try to learn from a few other fellers. I'm learning a lot. And I wanted to do these here videos because I learned a lot. That I like to watch that 2 is 1. I'll be honest right here is I really liked it before he really got sponsored by, especially now he's sponsored by these miner companies, and everybody's sponsored by these miner companies, and they kind of always pitch you on this mining stocks, and I don't know, they might be right, maybe they're right, but I kind of feel like maybe there's a little bit of profit motive in it. Probably is, and I ain't saying I'm against that. If they can make money, that's good. But it kind of, I don't know, I kind of like it better. That's what I like, Dub C, and I like that there Thousandaire Radio. A few of these kind of, they bigger than I am, but they kind of smaller channels. They ain't sponsored. Who else we got? Stack That Gold. Some of these channels, West Texas Stacker. There's a bunch of them, but a few of them I mentioned got a lot of good information, and there's a lot that I ain't mentioned that have a lot of good information. A lot I'd like to, probably several of them I've subscribed, but I ain't watched too many of their videos. But Dub C and that Thousandaire Radio, Stack That Gold. I like Stack That Gold. He don't do as much like showing his gold, and I understand why. I show mine, not maybe, you've probably seen everything once at a time or whatever, and who knows, but not so much just to show off. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't, I don't know. You can judge. Hard to judge myself even there. Maybe I'm showing off, but I look at it more like I like these coins, and I kind of like to show other people. It's a way you can show other people, share something you like, you know. And the other thing is, a lot of these coins I found, like, I wouldn't know about them unless somebody else showed me them on YouTube, like this Britannia. Seen several of them talking about Britannias. I wouldn't know to look for a Britannia when I went in the coin shop, but I watched 2 is 1. He talked about Britannias. So I said, that's a nice coin. They talk about how it had them security features, and I got to looking at it. I said, that's real pretty. So I wanted a Britannia. He talked about the buffalo. I'd never seen a buffalo. Only buffalo I seen, buffalo nickel. But he talked about that buffalo and how it, you know, one of the American coins and the benefits of it. And I agreed, and I liked the design, so I said, I'm going to get me a buffalo. Now I got a few. So that's kind of why I show some of these coins is, I don't know, you judge me for yourself. If I'm bragging, whatever. I ain't above bragging. But honestly, like I said, I've been blessed. And a lot of it, I couldn't do it by myself, really. I said to the wife, it's several of them her coins. And I work with some good people. They've been fair with me, and good Lord been good to us. Cause you know, if you ain't got your health to be able to work, you can't work. You ain't gonna do it. You know. And then there's people who work way harder than I did, and you know, sometimes I come from an area and it's pretty low pay. So I travel a bit. And that's how we afford it. We sacrifice, but it's also you know, I got into it pretty young, and I had family in it, and you know, there's a lot that beyond our control. So all we can do is control the controllable. If you can't afford an ounce, a 1/10 ounce is good, maybe silver. I ain't trying to compete with nobody. There's a lot richer feller than I am. I look at some of them, they got gold they've been stacking for 20 years. Well, they got a lot more of it than I do. That's all right. I like to watch their channel and look at their gold. I got one subscriber. I'm not sure. I think it might be a lady. She keeps saying, "Oh yeah, hold on to my gold." And it's just a little fun little game, you know. People like to watch the channel and they kind of connect. So, you know, I said, well, yeah, you can come visit your gold anytime you like here on the channel. Here, watch it. I'll just hold on to it. But you better be careful, because that third-party risk, right? Counterparty risk or whatever. I might just want to keep holding on to it. And I reckon I will. But anyway, so that's kind of a little stacking story. How I got started, and how the wife got started with it. So you never know. I appreciate, and I ain't even told the feller who kind of started me out. He don't even know he started me on it. I ain't the kind of, in person, I don't really talk about it except to my family, really close. I ain't gonna talk about it with my coworkers. Kind of figure I'm a little bit private that way. That's why I'm doing this channel. You ain't seeing my face, and I ain't telling you. Well, you can guess whether Mr. Mustard's my name or not. A little bit about keeping things secret that I think just people ought to do, especially if you got something like gold. Probably ought not be running your mouth to everybody. So anyway, if y'all want to share your little how you started stacking or your experience with stacking, if somebody started you out, I'd like to hear your stories. And like I said, I don't know if I can tag them channels, but if I can tag them, probably all y'all that subscribe to me probably know all of them. But if for some reason there's one channel you ain't seen in the ones I mentioned, you ought to check them out. And there's a lot more you ought to check out. A lot of people a lot smarter than I am, I'll be honest. But really, on this channel, I'm trying to pass on what I do know, which ain't much, but try to do it a little bit. I don't know. I ain't saying it's comedy. I just try to be a little bit not so serious about it, because you ought to have a little fun with stacking your gold. So that's kind of what I try to do. Is it ain't, there's a few people real analytical, or there's some people that are real smart. And, you got to work with what you got, and I ain't got that. So I ain't saying I probably ain't too funny, but funny looking, funny sounding. So we'll work with that. I ain't gonna show y'all, but I am funny looking. Y'all just take my word on it. All right? All right, then. Bye-bye.